Well, joining me now live from Washington, D.C. is former U.S. Defense Secretary William Cohen. Secretary Cohen, thank you for being on Al Jazeera. It doesn't seem like a lot of the leaders at the G20 have been won over by the U.S. position on military strikes on Syria. If you were a Secretary of Defense under the Obama administration, what would you be telling the president today? Would you advise him to carry out a strike on Syria without international support?
Well, first he has to go to the Congress, which he has invited to share in this decision-making process. He will need to get their support, and that seems to be an uphill battle in and of itself. But he has to lay out all of the evidence, clear, compelling, overwhelming evidence that chemical weapons were used by Assad. That's going to be preliminary before he can even think of taking action at this point. Secondly, I think he needs to go to the Security Council, the UN Security Council. He needs to make the case before the Security Council, persuasive, compelling evidence that even President Putin cannot really reject in good conscience. If he does, if we have this evidence and he rejects it, then two things take place. Number one, it undermines the rule of law, the rule of international law. It undermines the credibility of the UN itself and would make it absolutely futile to turn to it in the future. So I think he's got these two cases to make. He's going to come back and make a case to the American people next week. That will be important. But ultimately, the evidence is going to be what drives this particular decision. Secondly, he's got to persuade the members of Congress that this is going to be, if he's going to take action, it has to be more than a shot across the bow. There's no such thing as a limited antiseptic surgical strike that doesn't have grave consequences to it, because you're going to kill innocent people as well as military people.
Right, because
so he's got a lot of issues to...
Yes, a lot of issues, and at the moment they are talking about a limited strike, a targeted strike. Would that achieve anything at all? Are they going to be trying to destroy Assad's chemical weapons stockpile, for instance?
No, I don't think that's the case. As a matter of fact, I don't think they'll be attacking Assad's chemical weapons stockpile for two reasons. Number one, it's very hard, if not impossible, to do with cruise missiles. Secondly, if they were able to strike them, then you run the risk of a toxic plume being released in the atmosphere, killing tens or thousands of people. So what I suspect they would be striking at would be airfields, aircraft, hard targets that are conventional in nature, hopefully not located in the highly populated urban areas. So you would ultimately be degrading his military capability, not necessarily his chemical weapons capability. So that has to be clear as well.
Right, because what they're saying now is that this would be to send a message to the Assad regime about the use of chemical weapons. But what if Bashar al-Assad doesn't hear that message and continues to use chemical weapons? Do you see this perhaps developing into a broader operation?
Well, it could. That's why I suggest that a limited strike, you need to think through all of the consequences about what the reaction is going to be. What sort of asymmetrical tactics could the Syrians employ at this point? What will Russia do in the way of resupplying Syria with more sophisticated weapons to withstand what the U.S. is firing? What will Iran, what will the Hezbollah do in terms of beefing up the Syrian government? All of that is in play. But I think the real issue is not so much Syria in this particular case, but Iran. Because what's happened is the president has drawn this line saying if you use chemicals, there will be a military response. Now others are watching this in the region. Iran is watching it, Israel is watching it. And the Israelis are looking at saying, wait a minute, you've told us that you will draw a red line, you have drawn a red line in terms of Iran getting access or capability of nuclear weapons. If you fail to take action against Syria, we won't trust you to take action against Iran, therefore we'll go it on our own without you, and we'll do it on our terms and our time frame. So that's also very much involved here. So there are big stakes involved for the president himself and his presidency, big stakes for the United States and for all of those in the region.
So what if he doesn't get congressional support then? Do you think he's likely to go ahead with this intervention without approval, the endorsement of the U.S. Congress?
Well, there have been some rumors to that effect, and I think the president has an obligation to knock down those rumors, because if the members of Congress feel that their votes really don't count, that if they vote no, the president's going to ignore it and go forward anyway, they'll vote against him and force him to go it alone. if that's what he intends to do. So I think it's important for the president to say, I intend to listen to the will of the people as expressed through the members of Congress. I still reserve my rights as Commander-in-Chief, but I understand the stakes involved, and that's why I've gone to Congress and why I feel it's very important that they stand on the record in favor of this rather than rejecting it, because the reputation of the United States is on the line, not only in Syria, Iran, Israel, North Korea, throughout the Asia-Pacific region. Everybody is watching. So I don't think that you should allow this balloon to be floated that even if I don't get support, I'll take action. That will guarantee that Congress won't take action.
Secretary Cohen, very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on Al Jazeera. That's Bill Cohen, former U.S. Defense Secretary, joining us there live from Washington.